The rain in Manhattan doesn't wash away sins. It only makes the pavement slick enough for a man to slide straight to the bottom. Elias Thorne stood at the window of his glass empire, watching the clouds swallow the Empire State Building. For 3 generations, the name Thorne had been synonymous with gold, power, and an untouchable shipping dynasty. But by 5 p.m. today, that name was worth less than the scrap metal in his shipyards. The collapse was a masterclass in betrayal. His board of directors, men he had toasted with vintage scotch for a decade, had executed a silent coup. They had manipulated the ledgers, funneled millions into offshore shells, and left Elias holding the smoking gun of a federal investigation. Within hours, his accounts were locked, his properties seized, and the king of shipping was a man without a kingdom. He walked out of his office with nothing but a leather satchel and a burner phone. No town car waited for him. No security cleared the path. He stepped into the freezing rain, his bespoke suit soaking through, feeling the sudden, violent weight of being a nobody. He spent his first night in a 24-hour laundromat, watching the rhythmic tumbling of other people's clothes, realizing that in a city of 8 million people, he didn't have a single person to call. The weeks that followed were a blur of cold concrete and crushing humility. Elias, a man who once dictated global trade routes, now stood in line for a bowl of watery soup at a shelter in Brooklyn. He met a man named Sam, a veteran with a prosthetic leg and a weary smile. "You look like you're carrying the world on your back, son," Sam said, sliding a tray toward him. "Word of advice, the world is too heavy for one man. Put it down before it snaps your spine." Elias looked at his trembling, dirt-stained hands. "I had everything," he whispered. "No," Sam replied gently. "You had things. Now you've got a chance to see who's left when the things are gone." The internal conflict was a fire in Elias's chest. He felt the urge to give up, to disappear into the gray mist of the East River. The shame of his fall was a shadow that followed him into every alleyway and homeless shelter. He was a ghost haunting his own life, watching his downfall being picked apart by vultures on the evening news. He had built skyscrapers, but he had never built a home. He had signed 1,000 paychecks, but he didn't know the name of a single person who had worked for him. One night, sitting on a park bench in the biting wind, the burner phone in his pocket vibrated. It was a number he hadn't seen in 20 years. A 315 area code. Upstate New York. He answered with a voice like sandpaper. "Hello, Elias? It's Marcus Vance." The name hit Elias like a physical blow. Marcus had been the head groundskeeper at the Thorne estate during Elias's youth. He was the man who had taught Elias how to drive, how to fish, and how to be a man of honor. And when Elias had taken over the company, he had fired Marcus to cut costs without a second thought. "I saw the news, Elias." Marcus's voice was warm, carrying the scent of pine and wood smoke even through the digital static. "I'm still at the old cabin near the Finger Lakes. There's a bed made and a pot of stew on the stove. Come home, boy. The city is done with you, but the earth still remembers your name." Elias broke. In the middle of the crowded park, surrounded by the indifferent lights of the city that had chewed him up and spat him out, he wept for the man he had been and the mercy he didn't deserve. The bus ride to the Finger Lakes was the longest journey of Elias's life. When he stepped off, the air was crisp and smelled of autumn leaves, a world away from the suffocating exhaust of Manhattan. Marcus was there, leaning against an old dented pickup truck. He didn't offer a lecture. He offered a firm handshake and a seat in the cab. For months, Elias worked the land. He traded his silk ties for flannel shirts and his gold watch for a pair of leather work gloves. He spent his days clearing brush and fixing the roof of Marcus's humble cottage. The physical labor acted as a bridge, slowly reconnecting his fractured soul. He realized that for 40 years, he had been chasing a ghost called success, only to find that true peace was found in the silence of a growing forest and the honest ache of a day's work. But the past was not finished with him. One evening, while cleaning out a hidden crawl space in the cottage to fix a damp floorboard, Elias found a locked iron box. Inside were letters and ledgers kept by his late father, documents that were never meant to see the light of day. As Elias pored over the papers by the light of a kerosene lamp, his blood ran cold. The betrayal by his board of directors wasn't just a corporate coup, it was a criminal conspiracy that had been decades in the making. But more importantly, he discovered the legacy trust. His father, anticipating the greed of the board, had diverted a massive portion of the company's private holdings into a dormant entity. The twist was staggering. Elias wasn't just a victim. He was technically still the wealthiest man in the industry. He held the keys to reclaim everything: the penthouse, the fleet of ships, the power. He had enough evidence in that iron box to send every one of his enemies to prison and restore the Thorn name to its former glory. He stood on the porch, looking out at the moonlit lake. The fire of his old ambition flickered. He could go back. He could walk into that boardroom and watch them tremble. He could take back his throne. But then he looked at his calloused hands. He looked at the simple, sturdy life Marcus had built with nothing but kindness and sweat. He realized that if he went back to being the man he was, he would lose the man he had finally become. Elias made a different choice. He contacted a young, idealistic lawyer and a persistent investigative journalist. He didn't ask for his company back. Instead, he handed over every piece of evidence to the authorities, ensuring the board was dismantled and the stolen wealth was recovered. Then he took the millions from the Legacy Trust and did something the world never expected. He didn't buy a single luxury item. Instead, he established the New Leaf Foundation. He used his fortune to build vocational centers in the heart of the cities he had once overlooked. He funded programs that provided a second chance for people like Sam, the veteran who had shown him kindness in his darkest hour. He turned his family's vast, empty estates into community farms and housing for the displaced. The news of the Titan who walked away swept across the country. Elias Thorn became a symbol of a new kind of American dream, one based on resilience and redemption rather than accumulation. When Marcus eventually passed away, he left the cottage to Elias. Elias didn't sell it. He lived there, running a small carpentry shop where he taught local youth how to build things that last. He was no longer the king of shipping. He was a neighbor, a mentor, and a friend. On a warm summer evening, as Elias sat on his porch, he received a letter. It was from a young man who had just graduated from one of his vocational schools. The letter read, "You didn't just give me a job, Mr. Thorn. You gave me the belief that even if you lose everything, you haven't lost your value." Elias smiled, the setting sun warming his face. He had lost a kingdom of glass and gold, but he had gained a world of purpose. He had finally stayed in the black, not on a balance sheet, but in the hearts of the people he had helped. The phone call from a humble gardener had changed his fate, but his own heart had changed his soul. Moral: true success isn't measured by how high you climb, but by how many people you lift up once you find your way. Your worth is defined by your character, not your bank account. Now this story comes to an end.